Hello and welcome to Talking Point here on wesn Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw.
And I'm Sean Michael Small, and it's a beautiful day of not that much traffic, and I'm soaking it up. Those of you watching us from home might not necessarily have to be burdened with the day-to-day drivel of driving. However, you know, for those of us that do, even short hops like mine, it's something to be appreciated and cherished while we have it.
Sound a little more enthusiastic, my friend. A little more happy.
If we had a better transportation plan, perhaps, to solve our congestion problems, then maybe I could be more enthusiastic. But until a day comes when a single pothole will not paralyze half of the capital, I wait with bated breath for improvements.
You're going to be holding your breath for quite a long time.
I think there's probably a death sentence.
Yeah, you just
okay.
Really a politician to your heart, Sean Michael Small. Anyway, I think in order to be less depressing.
Really?
Yeah, I walked into that one, didn't I?
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Let's get into the deal review. Well, it's a very interesting story coming out of the University of the West Indies because it's not often you hear about it as it relates to staff actually taking a stand. And when I say stand, more or less protest. We are grown accustomed to the University of the West Indies students protesting. Even when I was there were quite a number of protests. And that cooled down. But now the students are saying that they are being made to suffer by the stance taken by staff over ongoing wage negotiations.
Now, I might be a bit biased there because this does remind me of, to some extent, what it was like, or my opinion of tutor when they were negotiating over the whole issue of the pandemic and reopening schools and their wage negotiations. So it just so happened that you know, we don't like this thing where we have to use our devices and internet. But we don't want to go back to school, right? We don't want to go back to school. So you have to pay us because we are forced to use things that are private property in an alternative, and we don't want the other alternative. Well, in this case, it's not exactly a situation like that, but it is a situation that does give me pause and questions, because at least from the perspectives of the students, or what the student guild is saying is, look, you waited until we've reached now, this is finals week. Some people, their results, we don't know what it is. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll be told that we passed or we failed, but we don't know how much by or what have you. And then I believe there are other students who their finals have been put on an indefinite hold. What does that mean, right? So
it means they might actually have summer classes.
Right, and there lies the problem. For some of these students, you're potentially costing them, depending on how the university now deals with this, an entire year of their life. And I get it. I understand you want to do wage negotiations. But there comes a time now when your practices are borderline unethical, or at least could perceive to be unethical, if they're not actually unethical. Now, to what extent do we believe the principle of UE with regards to the budgetary issues that the university is under, right? We know, or at least those of us who have some inkling of truth with regards to gate payments, the entire tertiary system has been built up because of GATE and the existence of GATE and the sheer amount of guaranteed money GATE was, but not anymore. And I think to some extent the academic profession needs to give some allowances to that. With that said, what do you do when your employers basically say, look, we're having a hard time making our budget, you want raises, and again, you decide to basically use your end of term examinations as leverage. I could understand on a technical level that might be some of the only leverage you have, but I have a hard time agreeing with it.
I've taken an understanding as to the situation on the campus. Even when I was there at university, and it honestly was an incredible experience, and I'm truly sorry that many students within the last few years have lost out on that experience. Fortunately, students were able to return to full-time classes, and they're still losing out on that experience. There were budget constraints since then. They've always been budget constraints, and the funding for the University of the West Indies, particularly the St. Augustine campus, has been highlighted throughout the last few years, even when Brian Copeland was principal. To me, every institution, its employees have a right to have their voices heard. And they also have the right to sit at the table with their employers, to have those negotiations, to have those conversations. We don't know exactly at what stage these negotiations are. But when you were saying it is unethical or borderline unethical, to me, and this is generally across the board, when you are negotiating, any sort of rebuttal to negotiation, or any sort of counterclaims, or counter arguments, or counter offers, you should never, ever use the people whom you are servicing as pawns for that negotiation. And as I said, it's across the board. I have taken the stance that everybody should have their salaries reviewed. But at the same time, as much as people want salaries to be reviewed, they themselves are not willing to try and review or understand the economic situation at all. Then they're never willing to do that. So they're not saying, okay, look at my bank account. It's not what it is given the current times. That's what you need to do. I don't need to look at your bank accounts or your figures. I just want more money. That has always been the stance. And people might say, Keaton, you're being unfair given the period that we're living in. But as far as I'm concerned and as far as I'm aware, these workers are still receiving their salary, whether it be every fortnight or every month. They are still receiving their salaries. So while negotiations are ongoing, whilst they're still receiving their salaries, they should continue to do the duties that they were obligated to do so when they signed their contract. Furthermore, if it is that they're refusing to do duties of which they're obligated to, and reading here, the report says they're refusing to sign and submit final exam papers to the examination section. That's a huge thing, Sean. And refusing to upload students' coursework grades and only indicating whether they failed or passed. If you pass by 1 mark and you have not one clue, again, how do you know the progress you're making?
It matters for your future planning.
Refusing office hours and responses for students and facilitators outside the classroom. Refusing to hold remedial classes. Again, if you signed a contract and you are receiving your money at the end of the month, you should still be fulfilling all these duties while it is you are getting paid. Otherwise, for refusing or failing to meet these requirements, your duty should be actually prorated based off of the services that you are actually doing.
I'm happy that the students have the stance that they have, because it makes my opinions easier to voice out loud. In the sense that if the students blame the faculty, well then okay, then whether I like this tactic or not, it could have possibly worked, and the faculty, management would have been pressured to resolve the situation as soon as possible. But it seems that the students, or at least the representatives that spoke to the media, are saying, well, no, we're not falling for that. Or we don't want to believe that. We believe that in this case, we are being pulled into this not by management, but by the protesting employees, faculty members, administrative staff, whoever else. But in this case, directly by the faculty, my lecturer, who is supposed to be a mentor, a teacher, etc., etc., etc. Okay, well, I guess now I know my relationship with you is purely transactional. So why should I care about you? So why should I now then put pressure on the university to try to solve your problem? In fact, if I was a student there, I might be protesting to say, nah, fire ineffective lecturers. Because at the end of the day, what you said there is right. It might be harsh, right, in these times. But think about what these times means. Not just with the way the economy is, but the reduced enrollment that the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus had. You expect raises in this situation. It doesn't matter what inflation is. If my business is going under or not, or is making losses, right? How am I going to justify giving you more money if I'm not making as much money as before? So Granted, these times might be a situation to overcome, but the point is then we could potentially, and maybe there's small increases. Maybe we could figure out a way to afford small increases. But what usually happens in the education system, to make any big movements of money, things have to be cut. Now, what's going to get cut? Because the irony of the situation is for a university, cutting things means probably, right, some programs are going to have to be reduced or cut out. So I don't know if
such programs, by the way, at the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus has been cut throughout the years because of this.
The West Indies group of university teachers. Think about it. There's no ancillary. Well, whatever they cut, it probably means jobs of their own members. Because at the end of the day, the money does not just fall from the sky. And in fact, as far as we're aware, Gate owes tertiary institutions money. So therein lies a further issue with liquid cash flow problems that makes the situation that the staff needs to understand is not so simple.
And the thing is, I really want to be fair. I honestly think that we should know the status of these negotiations. And I'm always of the opinion that you have the right to sit down and speak. But again, I am infuriated at the fact that teachers are not doing what they should be doing. Again, classes and courses have been cut, right? But at the same time, the number of students enrolling in university has also been reduced. Campus activity has been reduced. We understand that. But it's unfair. And what it also does is that at the end of the day, students are going to take this stance that they're going to lack any sort of empathy or sympathy for any wage negotiation.
For labor relations.
Precisely. I mean, it's very frustrating as a university student that you do your part.
Yep.
And when you sign up for university, GATE is one thing, because GATE covers you to a certain extent. If it is that you...
And the GATE bureaucracy might not keep up with this.
But I still pay all the fees that are due to me, that are supposed to carry out whatever those fees are. I still pay it every single year. And it's unfair to me. What the situation with GATE, the situation for funding at the university, has nothing to do with the students. But I've always said that we tend to protest in the wrong manner, and we tend to protest about the wrong things.
One of the things that we need to get over, you see, it kind of, unions overplay their hands. Usually, if I don't like my pay, what do? I try to find a better job. But in most cases, like public sector unions, and like I would assume to be lecturers, professors, whatever, of the University of the West Indies, my job is too cushy. I don't want to lose it. So I'm going to protest to try and get more money. The problem is we're seeing situations where, okay, the more money might not be there. And it's not reasonable to say more money just has to be there. But more importantly now, how you're treated, because this is what bothered me with tutor, because we saw the results from the at-home schooling. And dare I say, a good chunk of that could have also been by tutors' own membership that did not do their job properly while remote classes were going on. But that's besides the point. If you were serious about your profession and concerned about your money, you could have done this in September or at the start of the next year, maybe even during summer courses, so that students would know what is and is not available, what they are and what they are not signing up for. And the lack of enrollments, the lack of available professors, etc., could have been a strong enough message to the university. I suspect, however, that maybe there were too much cowards in that decision-making process, and they didn't necessarily want to put it in a position where they could be replaced. Because if I'm not going to start off the next year, you might look to replace me and tell the court, the industrial court, well, look, they don't want to work, right?
But I also think what you suggested there,
it's a lot of assumption, folks, to be fair, of what I'm saying. It's a lot of assumptions. And speculation.
Fair enough, because a lot of what we're commenting on is only on the information that we know.
Yeah.
It's only on the information that we know. You know, you said something there which I thought of. It it clicked. Usually if I'm not satisfied with the treatment I'm receiving from my employer or the salary that I'm receiving, usually I would look to find occupation elsewhere, right? The unfortunate thing now in the times that we're living in is that is perhaps the biggest bargaining chip that any employer has.
Well,
because the majority of the places now, I don't know if you're aware of this, there's still corporate entities which have, over the course of the lockdowns, reduced their employee salaries. Since we've opened up over the last year, and things have been picking up, they're still working on reduced salaries.
Yeah.
So it's not like we could go elsewhere and get something better.
But let's put it this way, and that's the point. If there was a reasonable case to be made that the salaries are being suppressed in an unethical manner, I don't know, maybe you could take it to the courts, but I don't think anybody could make that case in this amount of inflation. People need to realize you can protest your company out of business and therefore all your members out of jobs. Just ask Petrotrin. I know that's a controversial statement to say, but essentially from my point of view, in the timeline of how that went, that's more or less what they did.
That's one factor.
But
that's one factor.
Right, but they buried themselves.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on Talking Points.
That's before COVID.
Later, when we open up the phone lines, you can join the conversation and share with us your thoughts, your opinions on this situation. But for now, we pause on that. We take a break, and when we return, we go across to our beautiful sister isle of Tobago. We'll be right back after this.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
As we continue this morning's conversations here on Talking Point, we move across to the sister aisle, where later this evening at 5 p.m., the former members of the Progressive Democratic Patriots and current teacher executive are set to launch their new party with a bit of a twist. And this was actually first highlighted yesterday. And as we get into this conversation, we welcome economist Dr. Varnish James. Good morning, sir.
Morning. How are you doing?
We're doing well. How are you?
All right.
Well, Dr. James, this is a bit confusing, I think, for all of us, because whilst we were having this conversation yesterday, I took a glance at the photo of which we received last week, indicating that there was the intention of launching a political party today. However, this morning I'm learning, and I think this was first hinted yesterday, that there is no political party as yet. It's more so of a consultation to get ideas for a party name and a party logo. Though the flyer, I think we have a photo of the flyer which we can show the public, indicates that party registration, membership fees and a t-shirt will be included in today's meeting.
In fact, the welcoming statement of the flyer is, join us as we prepare to launch our political party. Now, does it prepare? Also says launch. So you can imagine the confusion, but also the fact that I think the Chief Secretary said that they were looking to create a new party by January. Now it's the start of April that they're starting consultations. To me, I feel as though this process is taking way too long.
Dr. James, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the flyer speaks for itself. I don't think they are, and I inquired from colleagues, from people inside the Executive Council, what is the intent today? And none of the information I got conveyed to me that a party would be launched today. I think that you're right to be pointing towards consultations towards forming a party. But I think the merit of the conversation has to go in the direction of not whether it's worth the while to have a consultation or not, but what is the priority the Executive Council, the team in government should have, given the campaign that was conducted in 2021. Mm-hmm. And I think that the government has lost so much credibility in Tobago that it would be much better off signaling to the people how it would establish the arrangements it promised to empower the people of Tobago. Forming a political party is simply a way to signal how you plan to look after your own interests. Mm-hmm. We didn't put them in power to look after their own interests. We put them in power to look after the people's interests. And there are specific things that we promised in the campaign that the Executive Council and the THA ought to be doing. And if they don't do that, then what would their party tell Tobagonians? Well, we're looking after ourselves. We'll get around someday to look after you. But for now, we're continuing the practice from December of 2021 to set up arrangements for the executive to function. Remember, that's what they did. When they took power, they didn't move first to set up arrangements to hear from the public. They moved first to set up arrangements to claim executive power. Now, that's what the law allows them to do. And the law didn't tell them make any inclusive arrangements, make any arrangements for empowerment and so on. But that was a promise to the people. And they've done nothing for 15, 16 months on that. So I think anything they do now to form a party without paying attention to the fundamental question in Tobago, as in Trinidad, the most fundamental question outstanding from our constitutional design is how we, the people, will have a frame for overseeing the Executive Council and ensuring that all will be done. And if you don't move in that direction, I think they're both wasting their time and wasting the time of the people of Tobago. So I'm not a big fan of this idea of launch a party in the way they're talking about it. The other thing to observe here is that you don't build a party by calling a consultation. You build a party by going into the constituencies, into the communities, and establishing the community action groups and political parties, so to say, at the constituency level, at the community level, to help you govern effectively. After they broke up the PDP, they were left with no mechanisms on the ground to bring the public into a routine, adequate process of informing them about what the government is planning to do and helping the communities to organize themselves to benefit from whatever the government is planning to do. So if you're not going to set that process up, what are you talking about as a party? A logo and a brand name? That has nothing to do with good governance, and it certainly has nothing to do with the fundamental needs of the people of Tobago. So Farley and his team are completely ill-directed or incompetent in treating with these fundamentals that the people of Tobago need to be addressed.
So, Dr. James,
there are other issues that they need to be cognizant of. And one has to do with the fact that in the absence of those arrangements, they are making a whole series of mistakes that will eventually mean the people of Tobago will have to remove them from office.
Well, that's a very interesting statement. Even you saying that the current government of Tobago has lost quite a bit of credibility over the last 15 to 16 months. What we've seen, is it that their political immaturity is actually being revealed to the public, and that their capability to actually work on their promises and get things done for the people of Tobago? I mean, I'm not hearing a lot of good news coming out of Tobago as it relates to this executive. Is it now that perhaps the launch of this party is a way to try and divert and distract themselves from the failures of a PDP party, and perhaps say this is the new way forward and the executive is going to work a lot harder, and you're going to see a new direction, a breath of fresh air as we've shed our skin of all the happenings of the last 12 months?
Well, it's much more about incompetence than immaturity. You could be very mature, like the PNM, for example, and be completely incompetent in understanding what the country needs, like the PNM, for example. So what I am watching here is much more a demonstration of a lack of skill and competence in the business of empowerment of a population for the purpose of enabling it to direct its own development path. So I think that's the bottom line. You're dealing with people who are out of their depth in terms of an understanding of what is to be done. But it translates in the end to a specific. The most important thing for us to do in order to develop the country and Tobago is to construct mechanisms in the Constitution that will allow you and me and anybody else, friend or foe, to participate in the normal business of governing the country properly. Routinely, we should not be bystanders watching an executive, a cabinet, anything like that, just make mistakes, do the wrong thing, and avoid putting us on a path to development. And if you don't understand that, then pretty much everything you do is an error. That's a government's mistakes usually stem from lack of knowledge of what the people want done. That's true in Trinidad, it's true in Tobago. And if you don't have mechanisms set up to know what the people want, to find out directly from them what they want, you're in big trouble. Every choice you make, half the society will be for you, half will be against you. And every time that happens, it's a different half. And so sooner or later, they drive you out of office. That's the way governments lose power, not just in Tobago or Trinidad, in the whole Caribbean, where this vulgar historical system of executive government prevails. And so what we promised Tobagonians when I was on that campaign was that we will tackle this problem head on. And we designed the methods. I, Shirley, and other colleagues teamed up to design what ought to be put in place since January last. And it's clear that this bunch of guys don't understand what we were talking about.
Is it that the too many people in the executive, they seem, you say lack of competency, but to be specific, is it that they are not sure what to implement, they don't necessarily know who to listen to, they lack the communication skills? Because we see this all the time where some government agency or political party or politicians themselves, they might engage in consultations, and consultation seems to be almost like a four-letter word now in the political landscape, where we could never really be sure that any real communication happens with consultations. But for every issue, there's always consultations.
Well, the issue is a specific type of incompetence. It's a specific type of lack of knowledge. You could hold consultations all day of the week. The PNM under Eric Williams when I was a boy was the master at the meet the people talk. And look at the kind of conversation we're having in the country today. The problem really is that the constitutional design needs to be understood. The way you read your constitution, you will see, it makes specific provisions for the control of the government by the cabinet, section 75(1), and so on. Everything thereafter, appointment of the president, everything you want to do, making law, it's all tied up with the cabinet and the executive. So that's what I mean when I say you set up an executive government in the country. And the THA is the worst example of that. Now, if you want to develop a place like Tobago, you have to upgrade that. And it's the understanding of what those upgrades are that really is missing in this discussion. And let me tell you what that means. In the US and in Westminster, there is a phenomenon that we describe as, in political science, as petitioning the government. That's a way to provide a role for the public in the day-to-day affairs of the government. In the US, you see it in the form of what they call hearings. If you have an education issue,
yes,
the education committee will call in the public, say, bring your testimony and bring your documents and give them to us, answer our questions, and then we'll go ahead and ponder on what that information implies for the law and the policy. Now, the trick to that pony is that you're designing the whole constitution allows the legislature to be a majority relative in the decision-making process relative to the executive. So it's like having a parliament in Trinidad and Tobago with 100 members and a cabinet of 50. A majority party, 51, will have more non-executive members than executive members in the cabinet. So as a result, the non-executive members could oversee, together with the rest of the parliament, the non-executive parliament, could oversee the actual work of the executive. Oversee has all sorts of meanings. But fundamentally what it means is investigate what they're doing, treat with their wrongdoing, and treat with their good side, their bad side. And when you see things to make law about, you, the non-executive members of the parliament, can team up to make law to instruct the executive as to what to do.
Well,
that's if you are
basically separation of powers, have the legislature to some extent.
Well, you could call it separation of powers, although you don't mean the design in the U.S.
Right. Because Westminster is not strictly like that, but they have that effectively.
But what it translates to is what we will think of as representative government. The representatives of the people, the non-executive representatives of the people, in their majority, can control and oversee the executive function of the parliament.
Dr. James,
right now, have executive government where the executive controls the legislative function of.
We're more or less out of time, but my final question to you is, and of course, I have to ask this in particular, given the fact that we've seen you campaign heavily on the platform before, previously with the PDP party. What is your relationship currently with this executive, and what do you expect your relationship to be, perhaps with the formation of a new party? I mean, consultations are taking place, but what would be your relationship, whether you intend to become a member or work closely with the executive under a new brand?
Well, in both the country and in Tobago, I stand on the side of the population. I am a citizen, and I want empowerment for the citizens. And as long as that's not what they're doing, I'm against them and will campaign against them.
Well, Dr. James, I want to...
Anytime they move in that direction, we're in good shape. But you're not moving in that direction in Trinidad, and they are worse over here.
I just need to ask very quickly, the way how things are right now, I don't think this should be done. But of course, the political opponents are chomping at the bit over the last few months. And you hear the all-time phrase called elections now. Have we reached the point where the executive has lost the majority support of the population, or do they still have some time to try to right the situation?
We're getting close to that. I think we are clear on how they're governing. We're very clear that they are autocratic, and we're getting to the point where minds are made up routinely. Every day people tell me, time for these guys to go.
That's interesting. Well, Dr. James, I think we're going to have to further this conversation another time and probably get some further updates. But for now, thank you very much for your presence on the program and for sharing with us your opinions and of what's happening.
And knowledge.
You're welcome.
All the best. Have a good day.
Thank you so much, Dr. James.
Well, that was Dr. Varnes James, an economist out in Tobago. Consultation, Sean. Oh, isn't that something that you've heard of many times before?
No, but I actually very much agree with what Mr. James said. We've had similar talks, but not necessarily about actual implementation. So the fact that he pointed it out as something that the teacher needed, and he's right. We've looked at it with regards to the wider parliament, but we've never necessarily looked at it also with the Tobago House of Assembly, where they have about, I believe, 7 divisions. So you're talking about half of the assemblymen, for all intents and purposes, executive. To me, it's not like the UK. This is what we don't understand. UK has how many members in parliament? Like 400 or something like that. So when you have what? A dozen ministries, the balance is not the same, and that's what makes the difference. That's why our situation is so much different to this.
I've said it as it relates to a national executive with respect to the People's National Movement and, of course, the major opposition party, which is the United National Congress. It's a similar position I'm taking with Tobago now. This is why the PNM does not have to do much campaigning, because one step, whether or not it is perceived to be in the wrong direction or if it's actually in the wrong direction, the People's National Movement can stay quiet. It's a huge plus for them.
I think I could feel the regret of the Dr. James, because of what he said, I would have liked to see that, and I think that could have helped cement the current executive as a major political operator in the country. But missed opportunities, letting good ideas go by the wayside. I don't know what the challenges are, but that would have been a huge accomplishment if that was achieved.
Well, they have 2.5 years. It can be under a different color, different brand. It's still the same individuals, and hopefully we see a difference. But for now, let's take a break here on Talking Point, and when we return, welcome our other guests this morning. Stay tuned.
The
best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, heart disease claims a life every 34 seconds.
Our relative sitting down across the table is experiencing a heart attack as we speak.
It is important to seek medical attention urgently because prompt treatment of a heart attack could prevent extensive damage and death. Therefore, one should try to get to a hospital as soon as possible, preferably by ambulance.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back to Tobago. We're staying with our sister Anna this morning. It's a story that Sean and I highlighted last week when we welcomed Mr. Cloyd Williams of the Tobago Taxi Association. And that is with respect to cruise ship business on the island. Now this morning we're getting to hear another side of this particular story from a cruise ship agent, Mr. Charles Cavallo. He's with us via Zoom. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. To everyone listening this morning, I want to say good morning.
Well, so this story started off with Tobago Taxi Association highlighting that they're owed $400,000. You've actually addressed this already, indicating that there is truth to that. There is money that is owed to them, not to the tune of $400,000. But putting that aside for a moment, there were two statements of which you made, of which I'd like you to elaborate on. That is, Tobago does not have the capability or capacity to handle the volume of new business, because I think 3 weeks prior to this, you indicated that it's been a lucrative cruise ship season for Trinidad and Tobago. You went on to say that the attitude towards business in Tobago also needs urgent attention. Could you please elaborate further on these two statements?
Okay, so we have been in the business for 40 years. And one of my notes here this morning is that we need to move away from the Port Authority restrictions where we need to hire buses for tourists on the ships from a taxi organization. These taxi organizations still have attitudes of providing taxi service to the man and woman on the street. That attitude for servicing the cruise industry today is different. the cruise industry is now a dynamic and a very demanding business. As I said in the article, they don't have the capacity or the capability of handling new business. We go out there to promote the islands of Trinidad and Tobago as a tourism destination. We want to achieve the 4, 5, 6 ships a day that Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Barbados, and Antigua receive on a daily basis. But my question is, does Tobago have the ability to handle that? Yes, they spoke about the money's owed. They are not just the only entity. There's a whole lot of equation that goes into making a cruise ship visit to the island of Tobago and Trinidad. Owing $400,000 says a very good statement that there's money to be made in the industry. What they don't understand and what they fail to explain to the public is that instead of having 1 ship a week or 1 ship a month, they have 2, 3, 4 ships a week. So that in itself will bring up the volume of money that you're receiving from me. So the attitude towards the money owed is irrelevant to the type of business we are bringing to the island.
Yeah. Well, I also thought when you said that Tobago doesn't have the capacity, one of the things, because from what I understood, the association members, they will be still conducting day-to-day business on the island. And that could actually be the issue, because you have these large amounts of demand that just comes, and you can't defer it, be late by 1 hour, 2 hours. And I understand they might have pre-existing commitments, but it seems as though, back to your point, you can't rely on somebody who has other commitments at the same time, and you have a limited time frame to get these cruise ship passengers to wherever it is that they want to go for their experience to actually mean anything. And it goes back now, I think, to Tobago. And a lot of people don't understand, a lot of the business in tourism in Tobago is very seasonal. It's not year-round, so we don't really have capacity build up to deal with large amounts of tourists in any meaningful way. Because for most of the year, the island is dead, so large capacity is not sustainable. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree, and that's why they have to take advantage of the business that they're getting today. Now, and you touch on a very important point. One of the biggest clients for the maxis in Tobago is the school children.
Yes.
99% of the time, we don't know which bus we are getting in the morning of the ships. In Trinidad, we can give a list of tours that we need for tours for a ship tomorrow. And we can have the name of the drivers, the number of the bus, and the organization in Trinidad can tell us where the buses are going. In Tobago, we only know when the bus arrives on the port, where they are going. And then when they arrive, it's about an hour before we know which way and where and which bus is going where. It's a fight, always a fight and a fight and a fight.
Is there any sort of authority that you could turn to try to properly formalize these things? Because I understand that they might not have the same sort of transportation companies in Tobago as in Trinidad, but at some point somebody who will look at the interests of both sides with authority has to step in and say, listen, we can't just do things like in the Wild Wild West if we want this industry to have a chance of growing and succeeding in the long term.
Yeah, because I have been hammering that for the last 40 years. The problem we have with the Port Authority, it starts there. That we must hire the buses from a taxi organization. If I go to a hotel with a 5,000 group or 500 group or 300 people group, I can hire the maxis that I want, that I feel fit for my business. But when I have to hire maxis from a taxi organization and I have to take what I get, that is where the equation and the quality of the service breaks down. We must move away from having demanded we must use the maxis from a taxi driver. The Port Authority must take blame for this as well. That system.
Is Tobago the only destination in which there is a regulation stating that they have to use? I mean, is this something that is common around?
That is what is required from the Port Authority. And
no, but is Tobago the only destination that you work with which requires this particular regulation that we have to use?
No, we have it in Trinidad as well, but they are more structured and more organized. I wish Tobago can come up to the regulation of what Trinidad has.
But you've also indicated that because of this, you're actually contemplating not necessarily cutting back, but there is no room for new business growth or new opportunity if such an attitude continues. Does this mean that this could lead to perhaps a decline in cruise ship visitations?
Of course. Like, for instance, last week, Monday, I had 3 cruise ships in the island of Tobago. 2 in Port Scarborough and 1 in Charlottesville, and transportation was limited. My issue is, if I start sending a negative signal to the cruise line, look, cannot come to Tobago today, you cannot come to Tobago tomorrow because we are short of transportation, that is a negative. The cruise line rather will stay away. And I cannot promote the island saying that we don't have the capacity, we don't come today, come tomorrow. Cruise line itinerary already set. So we have to live up to the requirement of the cruise lines. We have to provide what is needed.
From your perspective, is this an issue wider scale with just a lack of professionalism with regards to the tourism product and understanding what it means? This is a different business. It might not necessarily be better, right? But at the very least, it's different because people, you can't defer by a day someone's vacation and their travel plans and their vacation plans because they're coming from a long distance to come here. This is not like renting a house, a beach house for a local. This is a bit more serious when you're traveling a quarter of a way across the world. Do you find that people kind of take it for granted and they kind of don't really take it as seriously as it should in order to build it up?
You're quite right. And we need to build the standards of what we can provide on the island of Tobago. In Trinidad as well, but we need to build on that standard because the negative we have is that when they go to other destinations and they get the kind of service that they require and they reach to Tobago, and we are lacking this, we're lacking that, we don't have this, the driver's attitude, the facility attitude. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, we had 2 Boca Reef boats where the captains of the boat started to fight in front of the guests. Keep your issues when the guest is no longer in your presence.
Yeah. I think the attitude all around has to change. I agree with you on that. But I digress for one moment. You further stated that you've used your own resources to create a new port home for cruise ships in Tobago. If you would care to tell us the value of the resources or indicate what it actually cost you. And if I may say, with this being one issue, and potentially there are other issues, I know you raised the teacher refusing ships as we were coming out of COVID-19 lockdowns. But why make this investment? It's a huge risk that you've taken, and it seems as though that you are not getting the support that is required.
You're quite right. For the past, as I said, 40 years, I've handled this cruise ship business independently to everybody else on the island of Trinidad and Tobago. I go out there and I market the industry for Trinidad and Tobago. And it's a huge undertaking, very huge. Traveling, marketing, advertisement. Sometimes you turn a magazine and cruise magazine in any part of the world, but it's sea trade, cruise industry news, cruise times, cruise and ferry. You will see ads of my company, and you will not see ads of anybody else on the island. Only recently, we started seeing some ads from the tourism company in Trinidad, because they know and they understand the work that I have done in the industry. So they started supplementing and trying to go there and assist in the marketing of the island of Trinidad and Tobago. I spent a lot of money, as I said. We tried something with a new cruise line, was supposed to start calling Tobago on the 15th August 2021. All of that time we were closed down because of COVID. Trinidad was the very first island in the Caribbean to shut its doors for cruise shipping of COVID. And Trinidad, as a matter of fact, was the last island in the chain to open back up after COVID. So, you know, you put out resources not because of COVID, you put out resources because you're in a business and you're looking for the future.
Yeah.
Sometimes that future doesn't pan out because you have limitations.
Well, this is my last question because we're almost out of time. But first of all, I do remember 5 years ago, 6 years ago, certain officials took a lot of credit for cruise ship arrivals coming in and increasing over the span of a few years. And it seems to me that this is the one area where foreign tourism is increasing, whereas, you know, airplane arrivals, that has been on the decline and has not been reversed. Have you gotten any actual constructive feedback or communications with government officials, with the tourism company or the minister or the division of tourism in the THA?
If I just quickly add to that question, by extension, what is your relationship with these authorities and these boards?
Well, my view, as I said, I work with across the sector. I work with everyone. I promote the country of Trinidad and Tobago. It doesn't matter if it's this government or that minister, this secretary. My duty is to promote the island of Trinidad and Tobago. I have very good relationship with the Minister of Tourism, the tourism company. I have, good relationship with the Secretary of Tourism as well. So my view is that Trinidad and Tobago is a destination that is service my needs. So I have to work with everyone across the board. I have done what I could do in terms of promoting the island of Trinidad and Tobago as a tourism destination. Who wants to take credit? I have no problem with that. But my main thing is to bring the ships to Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm. Well, sir, I want to thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. And, we hope these issues are resolved soon. We thank you for doing your part.
Yes.
And we really hope things get better. But thank you for now, sir.
Yeah, as I said, people have been here for 40 years, and my children will take it for another 40 years.
Keep well, sir. All the best.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. WSN's Talking Point now breaks for news on the hour, and when we return, you can join the conversation. We'll be right back after this.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Opposition MP says CSO statistics worrisome. 28 TTPS officers get promoted. Wallafield man gunned down in Valencia. And internationally, 1 dead after Dutch passenger train hits crane. Now for the details. The recent reports by the CSO are insanely worrisome and reflect a portion of the economic hardship that workers across the country have been undergoing under the current Rowley-led government. According to opposition MP Rujanatan Darasingh, this is a clear indication of how challenging it has become for average families to now put basic food on their table. Recent reports indicate that the Central Statistical Office's Retail Price Index has stated that food and drink prices in January 2023 are 17.33% higher than in January 2022. He added that these hardships will be intensified by the imminent increases in electricity rates, which are being orchestrated by this government with the full support of a slate of politically compromised commissioners at the Regulated Industries Commission. Commissioner of Police Earl Herwood Christopher reminded 28 newly promoted officers of the major leadership role they now play in transforming the culture of the TTPS. 5 officers were promoted from the rank of sergeant to inspector and 23 officers from the rank of corporal to sergeant at the Police Administration Building earlier on Monday. President of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Social and Welfare Association, Acting ASP Gideon Dixon, also reminded the officers that the organization expects that they deliver and deliver with excellence. Police are investigating the killing of a Wallafield man which occurred on Monday. Reports say that Javon Boyce of Antigua Road, Wallafield, was standing on a street near the Valencia Market at around 2:05 p.m. when a lone gunman walked up to him and shot him before running away. He was rushed to the Sangre Grande Hospital where he succumbed to his injuries. In international news now, at least one person has been killed and 30 others injured, some seriously, after a passenger train derailed in the western Netherlands. Emergency services say the overnight crash happened after the train transporting about 50 people hit a construction crane near the village of Voorschoten. A freight train is also reported to have been damaged. Some people were treated at the scene, but 19 have been taken to hospital. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Talking Point, and thank you very much, Ms. Denise Martin, for news on the hour. Let's immediately get into our phone call segment. The numbers are on your screen. Join the conversation. Let me just remind you, please do not call in at the very final minute. Kindly mute the volume on your television set when calling in on the program, and also just be mindful of the time of your contribution. Be respectful. As best as we can, please. We're all adults, and I hope we're all mature.
We have a double dose of Tobago today, but you don't have to necessarily speak on those issues. But some of them, I do think there are wider implications with regards to, hey, tourism is always bandied about with diversification. And look, this is some of the practical hurdles with regards to that. And with regards to politics, I do think what Dr. James, again, what he was saying, having some sort of mechanism for the public to be better heard by the politicians. And he was talking about an informal process in government where, and we've seen it before, where we've seen, for lack of a better word, commentators, analysts, subject matter experts go into joint select committees or hearings in their legislature, in their House of Representatives, to give testimony. We've seen that, yes, we have GSCs, but we don't necessarily have outsiders coming into the GSCs.
I don't even know what
I don't think it's fully equivalent,
sure.
Right? So I think Dr. James had a point, not just for the THA, but for Parliament, for central government as well.
I don't even know what comes out of GSCs anymore. I mean, you get information, and that's good, but
No, every now and then you get a nugget of some state bureaucrat.
But it's not like anything that we're not aware of.
It's just official. It's just confirmed. It confirms government was things like money. We have our first caller from San Fernando. We're so sorry taking so long. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
Two nice discussions this morning. Let me start with Dr. James. I like what Dr. James talked about consultation and the setup of a different system. However, what you see in Tobago is a group of gentlemen, and I'm saying this kindly, a group of gentlemen that always wanted political power, but are refusing to go and get it and want to come behind the scenes to control those who have the gumption to go up there and contest and get the power. And that is what they've been doing. James, his brother, his other brother, Coach Charles, and they look at this group of young people as neophytes for us to tell them what to do. And they need to understand this. They're not listening to all this. They're going to do their own thing. They're young, but they're not stupid. And that is my point with respect to that.
Okay.
The other point is, Mr. Cavallo.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Cavallo skirted over the point that the Taxi Association was a pivotal issue. Payment of their money that was outstanding and has been outstanding for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't just this Christmas season that they talk about, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And he skirted over that. And I am still saying, let me tell you all this. The same issues that he's having with...
Hello?
I think, San Fernando, you disconnected again.
Why is this constantly happening? This is absolutely ridiculous now.
I'm not necessarily going to say who his phone service provider is.
I don't know who your service provider is. I know who our service provider is. But this is ridiculous. Caller, we apologize. I don't think it's your fault, nor is it our fault. But we live in a land of a lack of communication, and therefore I think that is what's happening here. It's just all around. We're plagued by it. Please call back in and make your point. Please call back in and make your points. I do apologize once more. Sean, I think you care to respond to the very first point.
With regards to the first one, I understand what he's saying. And to some extent, I could see why he said that. The only thing, though, is I already had similar, not necessarily the same perspective as Dr. James, but similar before speaking to him or anybody else, wondering to some extent, are we seeing their lack of, well, go back to the term you used. Dr. James didn't want to use this term, but the political immaturity, the lack of experience. He wants to say competency. It's a play on semantics. I do feel for the layman, for the general public, that lack of experience is probably the better way to frame it.
We have to go to call, but think about this for just one quick moment. Do you think that older generations would look at younger generations as being absolutely incapable because older generations will only see things being able to get done or achieved one way? Think about it.
Okay.
Call online with us from Santa Cruz. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning. The bigger, better network. Good morning. All right, okay. I don't think you've had much time to think about it, Sean Michaels.
No, we have Sugar on us on the line.
I don't think we do. We have Sugar on us on the line? All right, okay. That's
as we get the caller drops. What's going on today, folks? Don't give up. Keep calling. We'll get through this. I don't know what's going on there with that one. We literally just now got the call that we have a caller from Sugar on us. And we lost her. But please call back if you can. I'll say both. At this point, I actually can't necessarily remember the full extent of the question that you asked me, but I do remember the answer that I was coming up with, and it's basically both. I think, yes, there are a lot of times when old people... older people...
Said generation, but yeah, okay,
whatever. Let's cut to the chase. Okay, let's just cut to the chase. Well, and you see this a lot. They were successful doing X, so when you don't do X, then they assume you're not going to be successful.
All right, pause. Because before we lose this...
Okay, San Fernando, go. Welcome back.
Yes, gentlemen. Back on the point of Mr. Cavallo.
Yes.
Each island that has cruise ships, they have a different dynamic. And I think they're all difficult to work with. Eh? As I said, I've been in the shipping industry just as long as him in different parts of the Caribbean. And sometimes you just have to go. Everybody is different, so you have to tailor make your package with the locals. They're difficult. Taxi drivers are difficult, so you have to go and do the work with them. But I don't think Tobago taxi drivers any more difficult than Greendot taxi drivers, or any more difficult than St. Lucia taxi drivers.
Well, the only thing to that is, caller, I think we've gone beyond the comparison now. If he's literally in a situation where he has to tell cruise ships he can't take them today, he can only take them tomorrow, with the way how cruise ships are, they have a set schedule. They don't want to be told, delay your journey by a day.
Let me just interrupt here and say, part of this does not have to do with the taxi drivers. Eh? Part of this, if you will expand the discussion with Mr. Cavallo, you will understand that a lot of the limitations are respect to the port in Tobago, which is inadequate.
Yes.
And they have not been spending money, and I have to blame central government for that. They have not seen the light at the end of the tunnel with respect to cruise ships, and have not put some money into putting a proper terminal in Tobago. Tobago have been crying out for that for too long. We need to have a proper cruise ship terminal in Tobago.
Well,
all right, Kola, thank you.
Thank you, Kola. To be fair to Central Government, though, I guess you could say the success of cruise ship arrivals, at least in my mind, is somewhat recent. Now, 10 years ago, we did have them, but I don't know. We haven't really capitalized on that as much as we could have. To be fair to your point,
I can appreciate the point that you've made with respect to Tobago taxi drivers. May not be more difficult than, for example, Grenada taxi drivers. My position.
I don't know if I agree with that.
My position on that is. Regardless of whether or not they're more difficult, Grenada is a separate island. And if Grenada is still getting their income via their tourist product and via their university product, which I think the university more so keeps that island flowing and it's pumping a lot into Grenada. We can make comparisons, but that does not necessarily make it right, and it does not necessarily make it the ideal situation in Tobago. So, though we can say that Mr. Cavallo has raised these issues and we need to dive deeper, you yourself pointed it out when you expanded the point that there are multiple factors. Now, the multiple factors may be Mr. Cavallo's approach, but it could also be the approach of the Taxi Association and the points that he has raised, which may be valid. But you've also pointed out the port and the regulatory authorities and regulatory bodies. So, you know, I think where we could improve and where we could actually work with what we have, we should be able to get the best out of it.
Take the Port Authority, for example. My take on it is that they're not really tourism-centered. They have a policy, they want to stick to the policy. I don't know exactly what the policy is for, but the policy is not necessarily the best policy, because at the end of the day, if these same maxi taxi drivers do have other customers that they have to service, why are we insisting that you have to use them? Is it a safety thing? Is it a kickback thing? I don't know.
And that's probably a conversation for the regulatory authority from the ports.
But the thing is, what we need to understand is, and you implied this with what you said about Grenada, they make their money off of tourism. We don't. Tobago makes its money off of tourism, most of which is domestic, not foreign. Not foreign. The growth in cruise ships, to some extent, has been the only actual foreign growth that I know of, because hotel stays, for the most part, they've been flatlining for the last 10 years, and it's been a decline since the 80s, right? Up until 2010, 2015, so, right? However you want to take it. So, Tobago is not really a foreign island geared for tourism, and what that means is people might we could do it, right? Other islands could do it. We could do it. We have the natural island to do it. We have things that people will come to see. But to say that we are geared, we're focused on tourism, we approach everything in a professional manner appropriate for tourism, which doesn't always mean stiff and buttoned up, because you're in the tropics, so you have to have a certain mix of informal ease for the guests to enjoy themselves, but also a certain mix of professionalism as well. And he pointed out, I mean, the timing, it could have just been a trick with the timing, but he is right to point out the fact that two glass motorboat operators want to pick a fight in front of
right.
Guests.
Can't have that. As much as we're having our conversation here in studio, you, the viewer, can join the conversation as well. Although I will concede that it seems as though we are having some difficulties with the phone lines over the last couple of days. This is a public service announcement. TSTT, you're giving me a headache. Lord, boy, you're giving me a headache. See, the Trini came out for a moment there, but that was a public service announcement, courtesy Talking Point.
Of course, there are other topics going on right now. Again, that if you want to get into them and have your say, you may not have called in yesterday, so call in today.
What do you make about the acting? And I emphasized this quite a bit yesterday, and I never asked your thoughts on this. What do you think of the acting Minister of Education, Lisa Morris-Julian's comments that I am concerned with the number of dropouts.
I'm concerned with the lack of originality, personal touch, you know, any sort of well thought out messaging. That's just a throwaway statement.
Forget messaging. Just for a moment, think about, this has been happening for 2 years. I'm concerned.
Right, it's a throwaway statement. She has nothing really to say, so she just throws that out there.
She didn't know it was happening. She didn't know over the last 2 years we were having so many dropouts.
While I very much could believe that to be the case, I'm not necessarily going to assume that. We have a caller on the line from St. James. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I just called to break the jinx, right? I say a little prayer, and in the Lord's name, this jinx break, you will get calls after. Amen. And Mr. Shah, last time you was, I don't want just a little swing. Last time you was saying that I hung up quick because I called back twice, and you know, you said to give people a chance to call. So you were saying, boy, they account for anything in this country. You know, when I was growing up, the place was kind of really strict, and the neighbor put a carpet, and if they see you down the road, and when you come home, you can't tell your mother. And you used to think that things were so straightforward in this country, and that the government and the system was working so well. Only in my old age now to find out how disappointing and shameful it is in this country, the way how things running, boy.
Yeah.
You know, and I admire you two young guys there for opening people's eyes, because if you don't have a program like this, a lot of people don't understand. It hurt my heart, boy, to see how accountability in this country, and then everybody want to carry everybody to court for corruption and who thief money, and two governments for 5 and 5 years, and the other government in power for in power.
It's you're going to call some stronger prayers.
Caller, you're breaking up.
All right, okay, let's.
Okay, caller, thank you so much. But your break. Oh, oy vey.
Caller, thank you very much. We did not get the second half of your point, and we apologize for that. I think you're going to have to say amen a bit stronger, but we don't know what's going on. Somebody say prayers first. We're going to have to try and sort out this issue with the phone lines. To all our viewers, we do apologize. It's an issue that we've been dealing with for a while. We actually got it resolved, and we were going smooth. But I am not entirely sure anymore what is happening. I know that if I'm being honest with you, there is a serious issue with phone calls across TNT, particularly when it's one network, and interestingly, calls from that network to a phone number on that same network.
The irony is, and it might be too technical for some people, but at least the phones in my house go through the internet, so it's voice over IP. It doesn't have the same infrastructure costs per se as the traditional copper system. So, one would hope it will translate to more efficient pricing, lower pricing, more efficient service.
That
not really seeing it.
That tech tip was brought to you by TSTT. Call on the line with us from Chicago. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Let's see if you can break the jinx.
Well, I don't know, but I think I saw some poetic justice earlier in the week or last week when you was criticizing people who had to expect something to work when nothing works in Trinidad. Now you join them and complaining about when you're not working. And that is what everybody knows. Secondly, when I called in and talked about I halfway agree with somebody, and I gave exactly what half I agree with and what half I did not agree with, what you say, well, you do halfway agree, but give no indication of what you agree with.
I think it was time. Time was the problem. I'm sorry about that. No. It's
Okay, Judge, well, you had enough time here?
well, today we have a little bit more time to play with.
Well,
because
let me hear what was wrong. What you did agree with?
What point in
I can't. You
particular are
have
you
to bring back up
referring
the
to?
points. I thought I did though. I thought I if it was yesterday, I thought I did. Oh gosh, I can't remember.
Well, you remember the point of which you were referring to?
No, I did. When I told him what I remember, and then I talk about a number of things, then he said,
But
I
thought I
can't
did.
read his mind.
I
If
thought-
he can't read your own mind, I could.
I believe I did though. It's just maybe
did
how
well.
I framed it. You didn't necessarily follow, or didn't.
I don't think anybody else followed it, except
Lord.
maybe you.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, you have a point to make
I think
to
you
the
made a
discussion,
point.
or that was it. Just you wanna.
You're not glutton for punishment.
You know what? You're right. You're right. I should not be so. No more. I wave the white flag.
Thank you very much, caller.
You're welcome.
That is what you call accountability.
That is.
Calling us out and putting us in a corner for some things that we're standing only one leg on.
But it was brilliant. He's right. Why are we expecting phone service to be reasonably proficient? St. James on the line.
All right, looks like you said your prayer is strong enough, caller. Let's hope this works. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, Mr. Shah and Mr. Small, I call back just to say 50 years PNM in power, they never thief no money, only the UNT thief money. However, they have so much money spending on lawyers for corruption to investigate people, and you know, so much things wrong in the country and need attending to, and they just want to blame people, and why the nation don't open their eyes and see that if we put these people in power and what we reaping. I see one government in 5 years did about half the things the PNM did in about 25 years. You know, and I judge governments by this. And what is wrong with our people? Maybe they need to they know why they put the hangman and the cat and nine tail law in place. Maybe the past police, how they used to deal with the public, maybe they know why they used to do that. Maybe they know the mentality of the people. But not me. Not me. And I'm very sorry. Look at the state of our country.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to carry my wife to go to a little restaurant in the night or something. Afraid my little car to go and put GPS on it because I can't buy a next car again. I'll have to come to all the four liters, breathe a little fun, say, help me if they take my car. What's going on in this place? You all emphasize a little more. Have a blessed day.
Thank you very much. Don't come to Sean and I asking for any fun.
That's
If
a losing proposition.
If you sell your car, we don't mind taking some of those funds.
Yeah.
But
we hear you though.
Imagine 50 years. You've seen the progress, or in some cases, the regress that we've made from a state once. I remember my father telling me that you know, they used to live where they could walk down the streets and leave their front door open. You could go to bed and leave your doors unlocked. Now, if you don't have burglar proofing, it's very difficult to sleep at night. Now, when you just hear a noise outside, you don't know where it is or what it is. It could be for a sake of a mango falling on your roof. You get worried and concerned. So you have witnessed that. But could you imagine that the majority of the young people here in Trinidad and Tobago have only ever lived in disappointment? Unless you are affiliated, and I'm talking about young people now, unless you are affiliated with a political party. For example, I keep going back on this until somebody tells me otherwise. This 40 under 40 program from the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. If you are not affiliated with a political party here in TNT, then you know truly disappointment. So you've seen it. Imagine what we've lived in. You know,
not having a bias adds weight to what you have to say, and the caller exemplifies that very well. I am sure there will be PNM and UNC supporters that will take umbrage with regards to his criticism to their party, right? Whether it's true or not, we didn't even reach the evidence stage. He criticized my party, he's obviously wrong. He bad talked the other party, oh, he's right there. That's where he's right, but criticizing my party, he's wrong. But the fact of the matter is, here comes somebody that's basically saying, well, look, one party, in my opinion, they thief way more than the other party. But the other party is in power now, and look at what we have. Right? So he's not giving props to either side, and to some extent, there's truth there, and we need to be willing. That is to say, supporters need to be willing, and even the members themselves, like the opposition leader, like the political leader and prime minister, need to, identify with that to some extent. That is there's very real truth in that sort of perception.
I think that the greatest gift, or one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself, is the ability to accept constructive criticism. But I also think that if you are able to accept, if you're able to give criticism, you should be willing to take criticism. And it's for that same reason that I received messages on Saturday from Dr. Kirkme, who, as I'm sure with most individuals in the media, saying that with Fitzgerald Hines as Minister of National Security, we've been it's been April Fools every day with Prime Minister Dr. Keither. It's been April Fools every day. And it went on with a few ministers and a few individuals. I think Christine Kanglu as well and whatnot. And we can make jokes. I don't see any harm in making jokes like that. But when you take it to a different level, I could say that in that same light, the United National Congress has been a joke for the last 8 years with Kamala Persad-Bissessar as political leader and with some of the individuals whom they have on their slate. But guess what? Me saying that right now is going to cause an uproar. Me saying that is going to cause some level of let's go after Keaton for making those comments.
And just to be quick with regards to the question you asked me way back when at the top of this segment, I think ultimately speaking, I agree with Dr. James. I don't think this is him saying this is how you want it to be, the old fogey method, because they never tried this before. We've never had this before. And he's pointing out a weakness to what we have, are lacking, that I think should be addressed. And I do think ultimately, while the issue of competency to experience, we could debate that. I do think it's the cracks are showing. And how far we're going to see the cracks, but it's an interesting case study, as I've said more than once.
So very quickly, to the caller from St. James, though I think you were being a bit facetious. I wouldn't say that the PNM have never thief as compared to the UNC. But in the words of Colin Imbert, if it's one thing that he has said, which makes some sense, we are perceived to be less corrupt than the UNC. Less corrupt. That just means we thief money smarter than they did.
The irony is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know, but that's another talking point for another day. That's Sean Michael Small. I am Keaton Shaw. This has been Talking Points on WESN Content Capital. Remember, today is a good day to have a good day. And should it be a good day, we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.